Hello and welcome to episode 7 of my Formula One career. I'm Ian, and in today's episode we have got the Bahrain Grand Prix, the third round of the Formula One 2017 Championship. We are starting on P10 for this 57-lap race around the deserts of Bahrain. We are expecting a couple of good overtaking opportunities going into Turn 1, Turn 4, and again at Turn 11. Turn 1 and Turn 4, that's right at the end of the DRS zone, so you can expect to see quite a lot of overtaking there, or at least some side-by-side battles if there's no overtaking. Our target for the race is 12th place or higher, which is something that we should be able to achieve. We're going to be starting on the super softs that we, of course, set our fastest lap on in Q2 yesterday. We'll be hoping to run on them for around 16 laps before we pit for the soft tyres, and we'll be running on them for around 21 laps, something like that, and then we'll be pitting for the second and final time and going on to the soft tyre, which will take us to the end of the race. But let's have a look at the starting grid for the 2017 Bahrain Grand Prix. We've got Lewis Hamilton on pole with Sebastian Vettel just slightly behind him. And then it's Valtteri Bottas, Kimi Räikkönen, Max Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo, the teammates. Then it's Perez, Romain Grosjean, Esteban Ocon with us alongside, followed by Felipe Massa, Carlos Sainz, our teammate down in 13th with Kevin Magnussen, Danny Kvyat, Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, Stoffel Van Dorn, and the two Saubers of Marcus Ericsson and Pascal Wehrlein bringing up the rear. As we slowly make our way around on the formation lap, it is worth mentioning that we are starting on the inside of the track today, which does mean that as we're not on the racing line, it might be a little bit harder for us to get a good, clean start, and we may find ourselves being overtaken by Felipe Massa, who's of course starting behind us, but he's in 11th place and he's on the racing line, so you can expect to see Massa moving up, and also keep an eye on Esteban Ocon next to us because he's going to be looking for a good, clean getaway as well. So once again, we wait for those final few cars to form up on the grid as we await the 5 lights here in Bahrain. Quick look at the replay of the start of the Bahrain race, and you can see Grosjean in front of us had a very, very poor getaway, which allowed us to slink over to the right-hand side, and we managed to gain quite a few places and narrowly avoided contact with Max Verstappen. But also have a look on the outside as Felipe Massa on that racing line managed to even get ahead of Romain Grosjean, because Esteban Ocon had a very, very poor start. As we flash you forward, coming up to the end of lap 3, we've pulled a little bit away from Sergio Perez behind us, but we are right on the tail of Daniel Ricciardo, who seems to be being held up by his teammate Max Verstappen. We, of course, have DRS, so does Daniel Ricciardo, and we do start to close up a little bit. We obviously got a better exit out of that final corner, but as you can see, Max Verstappen, who doesn't have DRS, for Daniel Ricciardo, jinks to the left. We, of course, go to the right, so we are 3 wide going into that first corner. We back out of it. We're not going to have any contact with Max Verstappen. But, of course, we are now right on the tail of Daniel Ricciardo going into Turn 2. Sergio Perez has closed up behind us, but we now storm up to turn number 4, but we have that slipstream behind Daniel Ricciardo, and we make the move stick going into turn 4. We move up into 6th place, but of course we are on the super soft tyres. Both Red Bulls are on the soft tyres, so Max Verstappen is pulling away from us a little bit, but we can now start to rein him in as we come to the end of lap 8 going into lap number 9. We are closing in now on Max Verstappen. We of course have DRS. Max Verstappen does not, so this move looks quite easy. Verstappen dummies a little bit, but we hold our line on the inside of the track and we make that move stick going into turn 1, and we now move up to P5, but we of course are going to have both Red Bulls right on our tail in the next few laps because they have got the softer tyres. They're going to be going a little bit longer, whereas we are already starting to notice a little bit of tyre wear, tyre degradation on our super softs. As we approach the beginning of lap number 11, our tyres are starting to fall off a cliff a little bit, and Max Verstappen has got DRS. He's within range. He's only 3/10 behind us, and he closes down. Look in those rear mirrors as he moves to the inside line. We're not going to bother trying to fight for this position because they are a quicker car. We're not battling with them, and so we sort of back off out of turn number 2 and let Max Verstappen squeeze past. So we drop back into 6th, but how long can we hold off Daniel Ricciardo, who is also in a much, much quicker car? And we are, of course, sandwiched between both teammates. It doesn't take too long at all as we eventually reach into lap 14, and it's almost a carbon copy of the previous overtake as Daniel Ricciardo moves to the inside, tries to squeeze us a little bit. We're not going to battle too much with him either. We're not battling them at the end of the race. We're not going to. They're going to be pulling away from us, so we sort of let them go. Our tyres are starting to wear quite significantly. And now that we've fallen behind the 2 Red Bulls, we drop our fuel mix down into lean. We need to try and get our fuel back under control. And we've only got 2 laps to go until we have to pit for the first time to go onto the soft tyres. And we've got Kevin Magnussen right behind us in the Haas, and he is closing down. After Ricciardo overtook us, he was 4.2 seconds behind us. But as we reach the end of Sector 2 on lap 15, Magnussen's now only 2.4 seconds behind us. And it's around this point that our race engineer gets onto the radio to tell us that Magnussen is actually suffering with a problem. He's on the Supersofts as well, so he's going to have to be pitting soon too. But the fact that he's now suffering with a problem on his car just eases that pressure a little bit, because we were starting to fall back into the clutches of Magnussen. But with that information, it means that Magnussen starts to drop away a little bit as we move on to lap 16, which is the lap, of course, that we're pitting on. At the completion of lap 16, Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hulkenberg both stayed out. Same with Esteban Ocon. So we jumped out of the pits into P14 behind Fernando Alonso. Rather interestingly, Felipe Massa, who was a couple of places behind us, he pitted on the same lap. He comes out behind us in 15th place as we settle down for the next 21 laps on these soft tyres. At the start of lap 18, everyone who started on the super softs has now pitted. So we move to P9 now with Sergio Perez ahead of us, and of course Felipe Massa still behind us. Rather interestingly, Felipe Massa just cannot seem to close the gap. We are lapping at very, very similar times. When he makes a sort of push and gains a couple of tenths, we respond and maintain that gap of around 2 seconds. It's give or take a few tenths here and there. Perez, we're about 3 seconds behind him, but for the next 16 to 17 laps, nothing changes. We are closing in very, very slowly on Sergio Perez, but not enough to make any real inroads on him. The moment we start getting close, we have a little lock up, or we just run a fraction wide and we just lose a little bit of time. And Massa's starting to fall a little bit further behind us now. So we are slightly quicker than the Williams and Sergio Perez in the Force India, but not quick enough to close up significantly. And around this time, we have quite an interesting situation on our hands. We decide to go for a gamble here. We're due to pit on lap 37 and go onto the soft tyres yet again. However, the super softs aren't degrading as quickly as were expected. So we decide, let's stay out until lap 40 and then we can run 17 laps on the super softs. We're now going to go super soft, soft, super soft. So on lap 35, Sergio Perez dives into the pits and we move up into P7 just behind Daniel Ricciardo, who has of course pitted. So Red Bull worked that out well, warding off any potential problem that they may have had coming out behind us and having to re-overtake to gain position. They come out in 6th place with nice clean air ahead of them. As we start going around, we've realised that this could be a problem. Felipe Massa pitted 1 lap later, but here we are on lap 39, and Sergio Perez is right behind us now, but he's 14.7 seconds behind us. That's not enough to make any potential undercut work. We thought we'd go for a gamble and try to go onto the super soft. So now when we go into pit and we change onto the quickest compound, we are going to have to be really on it, because Perez is going to be 9-10 seconds further up the road than when he went into the pits himself. As we go into the pits here for our second stop, we're keeping an eye on Sergio Perez, who's just coming around that final corner now, so he's certainly going to overtake us. And Felipe Massa coming down that final straight before the final corner, he's more than likely going to jump us as well. There goes Perez flying past us along the main straight. Keep an eye on Massa as he comes along that main straight. It's going to be very, very tight. Do we come out ahead of him? No, we don't. He just gets ahead of us. So that's how much we've actually lost a place, staying out for those extra few laps to go onto the super soft tyres. But now we have a real opportunity because, of course, we're on the quicker tyre. We're on the super soft tyre. Massa's only on the softs. But if practice is anything to go by, this could be a disaster because the super softs are only about 0.2 a lap quicker, and we are 2 seconds behind Massa. After the first lot of pit stops, Massa was 2 seconds behind us, and we are now 2 seconds behind him with 16 laps to go. This has proved to be the wrong strategy. We just cannot close down on Massa at all. We're 2.4 seconds behind him now. We're just not getting any pace out of these super soft tyres, and we think we've made the wrong decision. The problem is keep an eye on Carlos Sainz behind us. As we hit lap 44, the end of the first sector, he's 6.7 seconds behind us, but he is closing in quite significantly, and that's the final points position. Sainz is in P10. We don't want to drop to P10 if we can help it. We've got to fight hard to stay in P9, but of course what we're worrying about is, are these tyres going to last? We're doing okay at the moment, but with 13 laps to go, this might not be the correct strategy. We may even have to pit again, and that's not something that we want to do. We jump forward to the end of lap 46 here. We have closed up on Massa a little bit. We're 1.9 seconds behind him. But now we've got the leading car, Lewis Hamilton, closing in. We are going to have to yield to him. We've pulled away from Carlos Sainz. We're 7.7 seconds ahead of him now. So we've still got a little bit of work to do. We're 11 laps to go. We should be able to maintain 7 seconds. But of course, we're losing a little bit of speed here on this main straight as we have to pull over and let Lewis Hamilton go through, coming into turn 1. That's cost us time, as Sainz has taken 7/10 out of our time already as he crosses the line behind us to start lap 47. On to lap 48 now, and now we've got the second place Sebastian Vettel, who is chasing hard to try and close down Lewis Hamilton. We yield for him, which means we've now fallen to 4.7 seconds behind Felipe Massa, but Carlos Sainz is now 4.8 seconds. He is closing down on us, and we are quite worried at this point. We've still got 9 laps to go. We have to really put the hammer down just to maintain 9th place. And these tyres, they're doing okay at the moment. They're around 19%, 20% wear, so we should be able to get to the end of the race without having to stop again. But if we get a puncture now, it could prove disastrous. With just a few laps to go now, we are 6.8 seconds behind Felipe Massa, but rather worryingly, Sainz is still closing down 3.1 seconds, and we've got some traffic ahead of us. The Silva moves aside, and that's Pascal Wehrlein, but that has hurt us a little bit. We've had to slow down going through those twisty corners, and Sainz has moved within 3 seconds now. He's taken a 10 out of our advantage with just a couple of laps remaining. Thankfully, Sainz does not get close to us. He gets stuck behind the Sauber. He cannot get past, and we hold on as we see the fireworks because Lewis Hamilton has clinched the win as we cross the line for P9, 3 places ahead of our target. That's 2 points for us and for Renault, of course, but it's Lewis Hamilton who comes away with the victory, his first of the 2017 campaign, ahead of Kimi Räikkönen and Valtteri Bottas. Sebastian Vettel ended up falling to 4th. Remember, he started 2nd on the grid. Then as Daniel Ricciardo finished ahead of his teammate Max Verstappen, followed by Sergio Perez, Felipe Massa, then us, then Carlos Sainz picking up the final point of the race. Our teammate Nico Hulkenberg finished down in 12th, as interestingly, not a single driver retired in this race. And here's what I had to say in the paddock afterwards.
So you took a gamble in the tyre strategy, but it just didn't pay off in the end?
No, it didn't. We were in a sort of no man's land, really. So, we decided to go for a bit of a gamble and change our tyres, go to super softs rather than the softs. And at the end of the day, it didn't work. It's a bit disappointing because, we probably could have finished sort of P7, maybe even P8. But I can't be too disappointed with P9, I suppose.
Yeah, you're still finishing well above your targets, so I guess you can't be too disappointed with them.
No, not really. No, it's just sort of a bitter pill to swallow, when you think how much higher we could have finished. But, it's 2 points in the bag and, it's a success, really, at the end of the day compared to our target. So we just have to move onwards and upwards from here.
Thanks for that.